The thing in the vents, I don't know how long this will stay online. Maybe it gets deleted. Maybe it doesn't. But I have to tell it before I forget what's real. I go to a mid-sized state university. Dorm life is what you'd expect: cold pizza, loud neighbors, and bad lighting. But this year, something was off. It started in early September. My dorm room began to smell. Not like garbage, not like sweat. It smelled like rotting meat. Like someone poured blood onto raw pork and left it under a heat lamp. And the smell came from the vents. At first, we thought it was a dead rat. Maybe it crawled into the ducts and died. It happens. Someone sprayed deodorant inside. That made it worse. Now the room smelled like rot mixed with cheap cologne. But the smell wasn't the worst part. Then came the noises, not scratching, like skin being pulled from muscle. Then chewing. Then heavy, fast breathing. One night, I swear I heard a scream. Not human. Like something giving birth to itself. And something answered. The first person to go missing was Josh. He lived 2 rooms over. I came back from class and found his door open. His mattress was torn in half, not cut, ripped, like something burst out from inside. There was blood soaked through the bed and into the floor. His bed sheets were stuck to the wall, like someone spat them there, and a black trail of mucus led up into the ceiling vent. They said he overdosed and ran off. But I don't think Josh ever left the room. Next was Maddie. She lived down the hall. Her roommate said Maddie had been talking in her sleep. Whispers. Strange clicks. Heavy breathing. Words in a language she didn't know. Then she vanished. No signs of a struggle. Her side of the room untouched. But her pillow, it had bite marks, like she tried to scream into it. Or someone bit down while holding her face there. After Maddie disappeared, the dorm changed. People were scared. Doors locked. Even campus security came. But they had no answers. They said people were just stressed. That stress doesn't explain torn mattresses and black mucus in the vents. I stopped sleeping well. I watched the ceiling more than my textbooks, until it was my turn. One night, I was lying in bed, couldn't sleep. I had my earbuds in, listening to music. Then I felt it, breathing, above me. I froze. I pulled out my earbuds, and I heard it, a wet, slurping sound, fast, like something licking plastic. I looked up. The vent above my bed was open, and something was there. I saw a hand, long fingers, too long, each one bent the wrong way. And the nails, they weren't sharp. They looked like small, flat teeth. Then a face slid down. No eyes. Just smooth skin. A long slit down the middle of its head began to open. Not sideways. It opened straight down, like fruit splitting in half. It screamed. Not at me. Just screamed. Then it pulled itself back into the vent, like it was laughing. I moved out the next day, but I couldn't stop thinking about it. What it was. Where it came from. So I stayed near campus and did something stupid. I bought a headlamp, gloves, strapped a GoPro to my chest, and climbed into the vents at 2 a.m. Everyone says vents are too small to crawl in. That's true, until you go deeper. There was a space. Behind the east wall. No blueprints showed it. It wasn't built by people. The walls were soft, pink. Gray, dainty, breathing, and hanging in the center. The thing, like a corpse turned inside out. It didn't have legs, just a sack of limbs. Twitching, faces melting into its skin. Josh's face was in its ribs. Maddie's torso, half inside its stomach. They blinked, still live, or copied. The creature wasn't feeding. It was building. Taking parts, making people from leftovers. My GoPro died. My heart did to. 6 seconds. That's what the doctor said. I woke up outside, on the lawn, barefoot, throwing up blood. No memory of how I escaped. They bulldozed the dorm 2 weeks later. Said it was asbestos. But a guy I knew in maintenance, he said they found teeth in the vents, growing inward, waiting. Now, I live in places with no vents. Only windows. But some nights, when it's dark and quiet, I hear it. breeding dot behind the wall. Still watching, still building, still things that followed me home. Then it was 4 summers ago when things started to feel wrong. Our town wasn't dangerous dot, just your typical place where people know each other's dogs by name. That night, I overheard my mom talking to my dad about a van, one that had been seen around town. White, old, and slow. Someone said kids were going missing. I didn't think much of it. My town wasn't the kind of place where those things actually happened. But the next night, I got a reason to think differently. We were visiting some family friends. It was late, around 1 a.m. My parents were busy packing up, and I realized I'd left my tablet and earbuds in the car. I asked my mom if I could go get them. She nodded and handed me the keys. In the roadie stepped outside, the air thick with summer heat. As I reached the last step of the porch, I noticed 2 headlights. Not bright dot, not moving fast. Just watching dot. Our driveway sits up a little hill, so you can see down into the road from the porch. But no one drives up that hill unless they live here. The van, yes, it was a van, crawled by slowly, creaking like it was waiting. I froze. I don't know why, but something told me to hide. We had this little wall by the porch that blocked the front door from view. I ducked behind it. The van stopped. Not for long, just long enough. Then it rolled forward and disappeared down the street. I ran into things. That wasn't the last strange thing that happened. 2 years later, during a rough patch between my parents, my mom and I left for the night, just to cool off. The next morning, my dad was at work. We got home, fed the dog, and I went into my room. And something was off. Dot. 2 paintings had fallen off the wall. Not just loose like they'd been knocked down. A favorite photo, one of me and my best friend, was gone. Not on the floor. Dot. Not behind anything. Just vanished. Some laundry had been moved from the floor to my bed. Blinds that I never closed were shut tight. And my lamp, on its side, like someone knocked it over. I laughed it off. Said maybe my dad had come into my room and vented some anger. When he got home, I teased him about it. He looked confused, swore he hadn't even been in there. And I knew when he was lying, that day, missing things. That wasn't the last strange thing that happened. 2 years later, during a rough patch between my parents, my mom and I left for the night, just to cool off. The next morning, my dad was at work. We got home, fed the dog, and I went into my room. And something was off. 2 paintings had fallen off the wall. Not just loose like they'd been knocked down. A favorite photo, one of me and my best friend, was gone. Not on the floor. Not behind anything. Just vanished. Some laundry had been moved from the floor to my bed. Blinds that I never closed were shut tight. And my lamp, on its side, like someone knocked it over. I laughed it off. Said maybe my dad had come into my room and vented some anger. When he got home, I teased him about it. He looked confused, swore he hadn't even been in there. And I knew when he was lying. That day, he whispered in the classroom. It's not just at home. Even school wasn't safe. One Wednesday, a short day, just before break, we were relaxing in class. I was sitting in the back with a friend, flipping through old library books, laughing at the covers. Then we heard it. My name, come here. It was our friend, or she was near the teacher, looking right at us. We walked over. What's up? I asked. She blinked. I didn't call you. Even the teacher looked confused. Said he didn't hear anything. Other kids nearby said the same thing. No one called us. But something had used her voice. Loud? Clear? Not the first time something like that had happened at school. And not the something at the foot of the bed. This started when I was really young. It had been about a year since we moved into the house. One night, I woke up, felt pressure at the foot of my bed. Not heavy. Just a small weight. I figured it was our cat. But when I turned on the light, nothing. Still, I could feel it. Something there. Just watching. Too tired to care, I turned the light off and went back to sleep. That feeling came back. Over and over. For grandmas. My parents always said it was my 2 grandmothers. Both had passed. Both had loved me deeply. They said maybe they were just checking in. And you know what? I believe that. Most nights, it didn't feel scary. Just strange. Soft pressure, stillness, like someone sitting to watch over me while I slept. But not everything that visited me felt kind. Looking back, there's a pattern. Voices calling when no one's there. Things moving on their own. People watching from the dark. Photos disappearing. Objects knocked over. Even at school. And the one thing that ties it all together. They all felt personal. Like something wasn't just haunting the house. It was watching just the house. Over time, I realized the truth. It wasn't the school. It wasn't just my bedroom. It wasn't just the new house or the vent or the photo or the foot of the bed. It was everywhere I went. Whatever it is, it followed watching. I'm older now, but I still don't leave my blinds open anymore. I double check my photos. I keep a night light on. And every now and then, I hear my name whispered in a voice that sounds just like mine. Sometimes I hear it from behind the door, sometimes from under the bed, and sometimes I hear it right next to me before I fall asleep. Inspired by Sister's locked bedroom and mysterious voice. 3 years ago, my sister died in a car accident. She was 17. One moment she was alive, the next she was gone. After her funeral, no one touched her room. My mom locked the door and hid the key in the attic. We stopped going upstairs. My parents moved to the main floor. I spent most of my time in the basement. It was easier to pretend the second floor didn't exist, but something upstairs wasn't done with us yet. Part 2. It started 2 weeks ago. I came home late. It was raining outside. The house was dark. As I walked by the staircase, I heard a creak from above. I stopped, listened. Another creak, like footsteps. Old wood shifting, but it didn't sound normal. I laughed it off and went to the basement, but the sounds didn't stop. Every night, around 11:30 p.m., I heard creaking, footsteps, a chair rolling softly. Then, one night, I heard something else. A voice. My sister's voice. She said my name. Liam. Soft, familiar. It sounded exactly like her. I couldn't move. I didn't sleep at all. The next morning, I went upstairs. The hallway was cold. Not just cold wrong. Her door was still locked. But now there were scratches. Deep, thin scratches around the doorknob. Like something was clawing from the inside. I asked my mom. She went pale. "Don't talk about that room," she whispered. And she dropped the key. My hands were shaking. I backed away. The voice didn't follow. It didn't say anything else. I stood at the top of the stairs, frozen. And then I ran. I didn't go back up the rest. This morning, something new appeared. A note. It had been slipped under her door. A single piece of paper, folded. It said, "It's not me. That's not her." Then who or what is speaking with her voice? The footsteps, the chair rolling, the scratches. Something is inside that room, and it wants me to open the door. The key is still where I dropped it. I can't bring myself to pick it up. My mom doesn't speak about the room anymore. The house feels heavier. The silence is worse now. It's not just quiet, it's watching. I don't know what's behind that door. I only know this. It's not my sister. And whatever it is, it wants voice in the hallway. When I was 7 years old, my class went on a school trip. It was a week-long trip, and we stayed in a large building with shared rooms. The room had many beds. Boys slept on one side, girls on the other. A thin wooden partition divided the space, but there were no doors. Just an open corridor that connected the room to a hallway. And at the end of that hallway, an emergency exit with a push-bar handle. At night, an adult was supposed to stay in the hallway to keep watch. Sometimes they did, but sometimes they fell asleep in their chairs. Other times, they disappeared for long breaks. On the 5th night, something strange happened. Something I never forgot. Woke up in the middle of the night. I think it was around 2 in the morning. The room was dark, silent. All my classmates were asleep. I lay in my bed, The farthest one from the hallway, wrapped in my blanket. I peeked over the edge, looking toward the corridor. No one was there. No light, just darkness. I looked at the partition, still. The girls were asleep too. I didn't know why I had woken up, but something felt wrong. I stayed quiet, watching, waiting. And then I heard it. It didn't sound human. It wasn't soft, or kind, or familiar. It was metallic, cold, robotic, emotionless. It said, "Run." Then, after a pause, "Go away." Then again, "Escape." Each word cut through the silence like a blade. And each word was in English. I'm from Italy. At that time, I didn't even understand English well. But somehow, I knew exactly what those words didn't move. I stayed frozen in bed. I was too scared to breathe, too afraid to even blink. There were no footsteps, no door creaking, no shuffling or laughter, just silence after the voice. I waited, listening, staring into the dark hallway, wondering who, or what, had said those words. But nothing followed, just stillness. Part 5. Phones weren't allowed on the trip. We were 7-year-old kids. No one had devices. No one had anything that could play a recording. The adults, all Italian. No reason to scare children in the middle of the night. Besides, they were all asleep in a separate area. That voice, it didn't belong to anyone I knew. It didn't belong to anything I knew. It wasn't a dream. It wasn't sleep paralysis. I was awake. I remember sitting up. I could move. And I remember how cold the rest of the trip continued like normal. But I was scared at night. I stuck close to the other kids. I didn't sleep deeply. I listened to every sound. No one else mentioned hearing anything. Maybe I was the only one awake that night. Maybe the voice was only meant for me. The trip ended, and we all went home. But the memory never left me. Years passed, and I still remember it. As I got older, I tried to understand what I heard. I read about sleep paralysis. But that wasn't it. In sleep paralysis, you can't move. You feel stuck. Sometimes, people see shadows or hear voices. But I wasn't frozen. I was fully awake. I had been lying still for a while, and I was used to the room by then. It wasn't unfamiliar. So, what was it? Part 8. Was it a warning? A spirit? Something else? Could it have been a machine nearby? A speaker? A walkie-talkie accidentally left on? No. There were no devices in that part of the building. No toys. Nothing that could speak with a robotic voice. And why would it say those 3 words? Run. Go away. Escape. It didn't make sense. But maybe it wasn't supposed to. Sometimes I wonder if it was trying to protect me. Maybe something bad almost happened, and the voice warned me just in time. Or maybe something unseen was there. Something dangerous. And the voice wanted me to leave. Or maybe it was something darker, trying to confuse me, trying to scare me. I'll never know. But I can still hear it in my memory. Exactly the same. Cold, empty, mechanical, like a machine with no soul. Even now, as an adult, I think about that voice. It visits me in dreams. Sometimes when I wake up at night, I think I'll hear it again. I've had sleep paralysis since then. But that experience wasn't like this. This was different. Whatever spoke to me that night wasn't a dream. It wasn't my imagination. It was real. And it spoke for a reason. But I still don't know why.